Welcome back, students. In this segment, we are going to be looking at a very interesting set of processes which actually help us to understand why certain flows are occurring in the way that they are. Okay. Um, the first concept is that of a race to the bottom. Let's take a look at the definition provided by Ritzer and Dean. It refers to countries being involved in a downward spiral of competitiveness. What does this mean? So think I mean, basically, this phenomena is referring to a situation where a lot of less developed countries or developing countries hit upon a plan to actually encourage foreign investment into their own countries. Okay, so in order to do that, what they do is try and provide really attractive packages for foreign companies to come and set up shop in their own in their own countries, right? So for instance, they may say, in our country, labor is cheaper than many other parts of the world, so it's cheaper to produce here. In our country, if you come, we actually provide tax benefits to foreign companies to come and set up shop here. We also give, land um, at, let's say, subsidized rates, or even for free if foreign companies want to come and invest here. Okay, that's usually like a development plan that a country may settle upon. Now, over time, what was observed in the contemporary world was that there emerged some kind of a competitive bidding when it came to the kinds of benefits that could be offered to foreign companies. So, what was observed was that typically in one region, there would be multiple countries who would try and outbid each other in trying to provide a sweetheart deal, or a really advantageous deal to get foreign investors to come to their country instead of the neighboring country. Okay, so it could be that, let us say, there are three countries A, B, C. Now, country A may decide to attract foreign investment by saying, we are going to provide labor that works at $8 an hour. And we are going to provide a 15% tax cut. Okay, or let's say our corporate taxes for you are only 15% per year, and we will provide land and other resources at a subsidized rate. The neighboring country B may say, hey, if they are going to do this, why don't I make the deal sweeter? So they may contact the foreign companies and say, you know what, my country is going to give you labor at I don't know, $6 an hour. And the tax that we impose on foreign companies when they operate in our country is only 10%, less than my neighbor. And whatever kind of land rate that they're giving you, we'll give you a cheaper land rate. Okay. Similarly, country C may even provide even lower kind of cost of operation for these companies. Now, you may be wondering, well, isn't this a standard model? Typically, won't a company go to a place where it is the cheapest to produce a product? To answer your question, that's not always the case, as the world of wine should tell us that cost of production is not always a consideration. Okay, so for instance, we saw that in the world of wine, actually, it is the quality of production that matters. Okay, and the quality determines the price and the profit to be made. But anyway, to come back to the race to the bottom, this term is called race to the bottom for a particular reason, because typically the countries who are competing amongst each other to provide attractive scenarios for operation for foreign companies, they compete with each other by providing kind of benefits to these companies, right? So these countries usually are developing or less developed countries, so they're already poor countries to start with. And what we see is that in a bid to attract foreign investment, they're actually providing benefits to companies that are actually quite well off. Okay, so that is why it is called a race to the bottom. So you're already perhaps here, and then you kind of outbid each other, and your well-being as a country keeps going down. Okay, so that is why this phenomena is called race to the bottom. What is interesting, of course, is there are a lot of sociological studies which also challenge this idea. Okay, and here I'm particularly referring to the work of Giraffi. Sorry, the date mentioned here is incorrect. The Baer and Giraffi work was done in 2003, and Giraffi's own work, I think it's an interesting study that we will refer to in a minute, that's from 2005. In any case, we can take a look um, at um, this concept of industrial upgrading that Giraffi has suggested in many of his writings. So he argues that sometimes nation states can actually undergo a process of industrial upgrading. Okay, so he says actually that it can be nation states or firms or even workers who move from low value to relatively high value production. So what does Giraffi actually mean by this? In his studies, Giraffi actually took a look at these places called maquiladoras in Mexico. So in order to understand this, we have to actually understand the history of production in the United States. See, today when we talk about made in China products, right, we usually made in China becomes a code for stuff that is made very cheaply, and if it works, it works. You should be happy for however long it works, and if it breaks down, well, made in China, right? So that is a term that is used to refer to low value products and with very cheap build quality. Okay, at one point in time, this term was used to refer to production in Mexico. Okay, so what happened was that as we have seen in our discussion on economic structures, particularly, the US was the industrial and production powerhouse of the world for a while. Okay, especially after the Second World War. But I think this is around the 80s that a lot of production started to move out of the United States because companies argued that it was just too expensive to do this kind of production within the boundaries of the United States. And they actually decided to move into Mexico to actually establish their production units. And typically what would happen would be they would all congregate, or even the Mexican government could have created these zones in which these companies could go and set up production units. And these zones were called maquiladoras in Mexico. So typically in the first, what Giraffi did was, it was very interesting. He, in his 2005 study, he looked at these maquiladoras over a long span of time. Okay, and he argued that he could see in the maquiladoras that there were at least three generations of maquiladoras. So he said that yes, in the first generation, the production in maquiladoras is very simple. Basically, stuff was being produced in the United States, and maybe it was being assembled in the maquiladora. So they kind of the assembly operations moved to the maquiladoras because they wanted to make one part of the production process cheaper. Okay, and typically the production was that of low value and low quality products. He said that over time there emerged a second generation of maquiladoras, and these maquiladoras actually started to work on slightly more advanced industrial products. So in the first generation maquiladoras, typically it was actually, I think, clothes that they focused on. But in the second generation maquiladoras, they started to focus on maybe small kinds of industrial goods, etc. Okay, and in the third generation of maquiladoras that Giraffi saw, he argued that this generation actually had, a very highly skilled knowledge-based work that was being conducted in Mexico. And so Giraffe reached the conclusion that yes, one side of the story is that of course there is a race to the bottom that may be happening. These kind of really poor countries get involved in this downward spiral of competitiveness that they can ill afford. Like a lot of their resources are actually being given off as benefits to these foreign companies so that they can come and set shop. However, Giraffe argued that what can also happen is that when these companies come and set up shop in the domestic boundary of the developing country, it's not simply that it comes and sets up shop and produces the product and takes it out of the country and sells it elsewhere. That is one part of what happens, but over time it has some unanticipated consequences. It has, so you may have heard of this term ancillary industries, right? So there are industries that come up perhaps connected to this company that has come in. Okay, what also happens is that sometimes because of this process of foreign companies coming and starting up shop, it may lead to some minimal amount of technology transfer. It may lead to actually training of the local manpower. So in that, through some of these processes, it is possible for an industrial upgrading to take place. In fact, the other article, the other example that we started off with, China. Today, yes, the default mode is China made products are cheap and they break easily. But we do know that there are some very sophisticated products that are also coming from China. Okay, so certainly, this is an interesting phenomena that we can see. I mean, certainly a process which helps to explain why do economic flows of, let's say, production or products flow to particular countries, and what happens to this kind of flow if we observe it over time.